big banjo devotee, so that one tends to resonate with me.
Yeah, moonshine music.
You like it? Oh, the moonshine bottle. Yeah, the still.
XXX, exactly.
Look, on second, I don't know about the association there.
No.
It's worth a try.
Yeah.
We'll keep
a bit
going.
of a
We'll keep
redneck
looking.
jamboree, that.
We'll keep looking.
Well, moonshine runners, cars, NASCAR.
Hello and welcome to the CarsGuide Podcast, where we tear down, pressure test, and rebuild the issues of the automotive week. I'm James, and with me are Richard.
Hello.
And Matt.
G'day.
This week, among other things, we'll look at South Korean comebacks, fruit-to-car comparisons, and the human-shaped corn chip, otherwise known as Donald Trump.
Good bloke.
So stay with us. But first, Musquatch.
What is it this week? What isn't it this week?
Yeah.
Essentially, Elon is mad that the media has stopped presenting his stories as non-fiction. So they're basically calling him out after about, 10 years worth of massively over-promising and under-delivering. The hubris that he has displayed over that time, you just sense that it's piling up. Mm-hmm. And he's going into a slightly kind of paranoid dark corner of the room and just throwing out bile back. It's all the media's fault. Yeah. He's absolutely, in my view, playing the player, not the ball.
I think he's playing the media to a T. I think this is a brilliant media strategy because it makes us think about it, makes us talk about it, makes us get insecure.
Okay.
It's exactly what he wants.
Okay. Ooh. But so what's the end game for that? That nobody believes anything that's said? Well,
it's the whole distrust of what you read on the internet, isn't it?
Okay, fine.
I think he's meta. I think he's thinking about post-internet.
Oh, I think he's a man under pressure. He's just going to his default position.
Do you think he's doing that Trump technique where he's dissing the media information and it means then people don't know what to believe?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening? Confusion.
I think, confusion reigns. Yep. And so does Elon. So.
Either way, I would not want to be working for him. I think right now, wherever you are, SpaceX, Tesla, boring, wherever, I think he'd be pretty under the pump, and so would you.
Well, he has decided, or he had the idea on Twitter, where else, that he would create a kind of truth-checking agency and call it Pravda, which actually is Russian for truth, and was the propaganda organ for the former Soviet Union.
What do you mean?
That's the plan, so that you could just kind of crowdsource truth fact-checking on news sources.
Isn't that Snopes?
Look, again, much and all as the bricks that are coming out of the boring company look a lot like Besser blocks. This looks a lot like something that's already been invented. Yeah. Like the whole boring company is reinventing trains.
Yes.
So look, there's that. He's clearly a man under pressure. Yeah. But just to dial that up a bit further, there's been another Model S crash. This time in Laguna Beach in California. And someone unfortunately crashed into a police vehicle in Laguna Beach. And it was a Model S. And the person that was driving or wasn't driving the car at the time according to police, told investigators that they were in autopilot mode at the time. So these, okay, fair enough. I take the argument. There are lots of crashes all over the world every day. Why just pick on these ones? I just take exception to the fact that this whole function is called autopilot, which conjures up images of hands off, feet off, brain off, the car will drive itself, and these crashes are pretty stark evidence that that's not the case.
Can I just say something? If I crashed into a cop car, I'd probably say, I was on autopilot as well.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. They need to be able to prove whether it was or not. And I think if Tesla wants to, limit the impact that this is having on its reputation, then they need to check out these crashes, see if autopilot was engaged. I think they should publish it too.
Yeah.
Tell us the truth.
Yeah.
If it is failing, let us know why.
Yeah.
How can you fix it? Make it better. If this is the future of autonomy and the future of mobility, then...
Truth is the first casualty of war, my friends.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that Elon Musk has gone to a war footing and he's using all tactics and weapons at his disposal.
Don't forget as well, with Tesla's autopilot, I sometimes believe that there's a lot of user error that goes on. I've driven Teslas myself, not the current level 5 autonomy ones which have just rolled out, but even then, you still can't switch off.
And by that you mean that they are equipped to eventually operate.
That's right.
At a level of level 5 autonomy.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look, let's leave it there. The next week, every week, is interesting in the world of crazy Elon.
Do you think we're playing to Elon here? Are we giving him too much love?
The day Elon Musk mentions the CarsGuide podcast, we've won.
Elon, I dare you to.
We win. Yeah. The call's out.
I dare you to.
Yeah. Okay, but
do it.
To a slightly saner world, BMW has stood out as the first mainstream brand, in fact, probably the first brand full stop, to offer a wireless charging, what amounts to a mat or a facility at your workplace or at home, for its electric cars. Matt, you wrote the story.
Yep.
Give us the details.
Yeah, so basically it uses wireless inductive charging rather than having to get out of your car and plug it in. Instead, you will drive your car over this thing called a charge pad, and underneath the electric motor section of the car, or underneath the engine bay, I think it's positioned, there's a thing called a car pad. And once they align, and you can get guidance from the camera system on the car how to align it perfectly. Once they align, the car will tell you to stop, and between the two pads you'll have about 8 centimeters of clearance, and then it just uses magnetic fields to wirelessly charge the car. It's basically the same technology as you get with a wireless phone charger, for like a Qi charger that you'll find. But this is for a car, and they're claiming 80% efficiency, which is better than what you get with a contacted wireless charge from Qi. So that's pretty good.
That's amazing.
I mean, Richard, you wrote a story a little while ago where you copped a bit of heat. I think it was a hybrid vehicle. You hadn't plugged it in. You hadn't charged up the battery and drove it in lazy mode.
Lazy mode.
But it raised the whole point that it is that extra level of effort, possibly at the end of a long and arduous day, to, even if it's just walking over the wall, putting the plug in, it's one more thing. This wipes it out completely.
This is exactly what the electric vehicle and hybrid vehicle industry needs. Because until now, if you didn't have access to a power point or a wall unit near where you park your car, you just couldn't charge it. You know what I mean? That was one of the difficulties that I faced when I had the XC60.
That was one of many difficulties.
One of the many difficulties
just in general.
Just charging. This pad, surely it must plug in somewhere, but if it can be rolled out somewhere else and you can drive over it, it's just so easy. It's exactly what it needs.
So imagine if you own one of these cars, which it's the 530e iPerformance to start off with. If you've got one of these pads at your work parking spot, if you happen to have one, if you have one at your home garage, then it's just a matter of time before you see this sort of stuff rolling out into shopping centres, into airport car parks, that sort of thing. Makes perfect sense.
3.5 hours full charge.
And no timing for Australia, but there's Europe. It's going to be reasonably soonish.
July is the start. June or July is the start of rollout. So for Europe and China and America.
And sorry, just to put you on the spot, that 530e is already on sale in Australia.
So, yeah.
So.
But not the. I don't know if it's the plug-in. Yeah, I think it might be the plug-in.
I reviewed the 530e last year. The plug-in.
Yeah, it was the plug-in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we'll get it sooner rather than later. So it'd be fun to play with it.
Yeah, definitely.
If we could. Yeah. But moving on, you've all been on tenterhooks. Everybody's been waiting, but at last, confirmation: Ssangyong is coming back to the Australian market in 2018. Before the end of the year, Ssangyong will be back.
Are they coming back with 2 S's at the beginning of their name?
Still 2 S's. Many might say one of them is surplus to requirements, but it's still there. And they're going to be coming back with a smaller SUV model called the Tivoli.
Yes.
Yeah. And also they'll be back with a name that's familiar, being Rexton and Musso.
Yep.
To me, Ssangyong is just joined at the hip with the Stavic, aka Rodius, the first generation of which I would argue is the most ungainly looking car ever made.
Could be.
It'd be a good debate. But the second generation toned all that down a bit. But anyway, rather than being through a private importer distributor, it's going to be a direct subsidiary.
Right.
So they'll probably have a pretty serious crack at this market, and yet another brand competing in all of these, light commercial and SUV segments.
Yeah.
Rexon's not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got that Maserati style logo on its, its C-pillar, and it's definitely the prestige ends, and there's some, Mercedes-Benz, GL sort of.
And the
GLE
Tivoli,
sort of.
the Tivoli looks quite handsome.
Yeah.
The story's on carsguide.com.au. Go and have a look. So let's see.
Yep.
We'll see what they come up with.
The one that I'm looking forward to is the Musso, the Ute, which looks really good.
Okay.
But, I've driven a few Sangyongs in the past, and some of them look better than they drive.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And this is a brand that we've seen dozens upon dozens of concept SUVs and different vehicles at motor shows for the last 5 years, and not really seen anything live up
Well,
to
it'll
it,
be interesting, won't it? Because Hyundai and Kia have made such enormous strides, and here's Ssangyong, another South Korean brand that you'd expect to be right in lockstep with them. So we'll see. We'll see where they are relative to the big two. Yeah?
It's going to be hard.
Now, on fairly serious note, the Takata recall continues to grow, specifically by another 1.1 million vehicles in Australia, from brands Citroën, McLaren and Opel. Now, Opel was only here for 5 minutes a few years ago, but those vehicles are involved. And the ACCC Deputy Chair, Delia Rickard, expects even more models to join this compulsory recall. So I suppose we've been over this ground. All we'd say is make sure you go to productsafety.gov.au. We'll put that link into the show notes, and just check if your car is one of those vehicles. Get the work done just as soon as you can.
Absolutely. The ACCC also at their website will list whether your car's VIN number has been recalled, and we've got a link on the CarsGuide website which will help you sort of identify whether your car needs to go back to.
It's simple. It could save your life.
Simple
if you value your life or the lives of the people that you drive with, then you should do it.
And really, it's as serious as if your car is one of those identified, don't drive it.
Yeah.
Don't drive it anymore.
And man, seriously,
stop it. Get it towed to the dealership.
Yeah.
I would even suggest, even if you had no idea, just speak to the manufacturer anyway. It's not going to cost you anything. They do it for free, and they have to. So,
Yep. Now, look, an equally serious matter. We're fortunate enough to work for an employer that provides us with a fruit box at the beginning of each week. Fantastic.
Ooh.
Wander over at morning tea, grab one of those. Richard, I think you happened to choose an apple.
Love an apple.
Earlier in the week.
Love it.
And you were bemoaning the particular variety of apple. I don't know whether you were thrilled by it.
Yeah.
And we came up with a way of assessing apples.
Yep.
By comparing them to cars.
Yeah.
In fact, we narrowed this one down to Toyotas.
Basically, just Toyotas.
Just Toyotas.
Yep.
And what was the apple? Do you recall the apple that you had?
I love a Fuji.
You had a Fuji.
You only get Red Delicious in the box.
Yeah.
And Red Delicious look good, but they don't taste as good as a Fuji.
For mine, the Red Delicious is your Corolla. It's crunchy and it's mildly sweet, but it's one of the most popular. Yeah. It's just everywhere.
It's out there.
Ubiquitous.
Yeah.
It is the Corolla of apple.
But it's not necessarily the best.
It's value packed.
There's
no doubt about it.
Whereas, what was the one you mentioned? The Fuji.
Fuji.
I call that a Prius.
Oh, really?
It's a little bit exotic.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crunchy but super sweet. And devotees such as yourself, it's not a broad-based apple.
Well,
it's more a niche apple.
And Fuji fans, we're rusted on.
You know each other. You give each other a hat tip in the street.
See, that's the thing. If you're a Fuji fan, you'll spend that little bit extra just to make yourself feel better about it.
That's it.
And you know.
Yeah.
See, the other one we touched on was your Royal Gala.
Okay.
So now I'm calling your Royal Gala. It's crisp. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
That's a Supra.
Oh.
Ooh.
Now, look, it could be Supra's past or the one that's about to come, but I think it's got a bit of grunt.
Yeah.
Whereas the wannabe Supra is your pink lady.
Oh.
So your
I
pink
love a
lady,
pink lady.
that's an 86.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that.
You guys seen that?
Yeah.
Okay. But then that
Maybe
leaves
a
us
Fuji
with...
should be an 86 because really under the bonnet it's got Fuji stamped on it. Heavy Industries.
That's interesting.
Ooh.
That's interesting.
Ooh.
That's a level of detail that I hadn't gone to.
That.
But I've got a couple left. Your Golden Delicious. See, I think that's more a Camry.
Yeah.
You know, the Camry's
the
getting
mainstay.
better. It's probably was your delicious.
Yeah.
But I think your golden delicious means it's got that extra layer of interest now.
Yeah.
And the other one is the Granny Smith, which I see, that's your cooking apple, right? Really.
Yeah.
It's a worker.
Kluger?
70 Series Land Cruiser.
Oh, yes.
Unstoppable.
Granny or granddad.
Dependable.
Yeah.
Been around forever.
Yeah, dependable. Yeah. You can rely on a Granny Smith.
Not necessarily living up to the green colour, but...
No, true. 4.5 litre diesel V8.
But I tell you what, been around for a long time. Fan of the CWA, I suppose. So,
yes.
Good idea. Yep. So look, let us know your thoughts. Apples as Toyotas.
Yeah. How
We'll
about them
give you the
apples?
details to get in touch at the end. But where do you sit on this discussion? But in the interim, speaking of Aussie and speaking of all that's good with this country, it's time for a word from Winton.
Oh, yes.
Life's a journey, and for over a century, Winton's been helping Australians enjoy the ride. Behind the wheel of a Winton, you're comfortably in control of the most efficient, enjoyable, and brilliantly engineered car in the world. In fact, from class-leading luxury and performance cars to light trucks, heavy haulers, and agricultural equipment, all supported by our no-haggle, lifetime warranty and industry-leading service, Winton covers all the bases. Winton, Australian with a world of difference.
Those blokes.
Look,
Yeah, what?
All right, where is he?
Again,
Where is he?
We've got a chair for him, and I've been petitioning our good friend Frosty Chops, head of communications for PR and corporate and government relations at Winton Motor Company. But let's just say he's in LA and in Roseanne Barr's corner.
Oh, what?
He's trying to get her TV rebooted. Amazingly.
What, is he defending her?
He is. Look, let's just put our own political and social views aside.
He's gone down.
told me it's a tough ask. Because Roseanne is one of the loosest, he says, this is a quote.
Hang on.
He sent me a text. He said, Roseanne is one of the loosest cannons I've ever worked with, and I've worked with some absolute lunatics.
He's worked with some loose ones.
He has.
Hasn't he?
He has. But
He is one.
Look, if anyone can get this train wreck back on the rails, it's Frosty.
Yeah.
He's probably going to do a bit of a job on Roseanne and try and bring her up to speed in terms of 2018 values.
Media training, the whole lot.
She's been a little bit racist.
Oh,
in this
a little
whole
bit.
thing.
It's like being a little bit pregnant.
So
You either are or you are.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
right.
stay tuned.
Wow.
But we've had some more feedback, which is terrific. And once again, it's been courtesy of YouTube. And it's from Peter Gaskin. And he says, found your comment on battery materials and electricity infrastructure very interesting. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Some of your statements have been widely discussed in the media. My view is that EVs are a stopgap to hydrogen. And that's not a bad thought, because really, in terms of sustainability, hydrogen, if the infrastructure can be set up, seems like a more of a goer in the longer term. Yeah?
Now, I've driven 2 hydrogen cars this year. I've driven the Toyota Mirai and the Hyundai Nexo.
Yep.
Both brands are saying that hydrogen and electricity are going to work alongside one another. These are going to be the 2 measures that will be taken by major automotive brands across trucks, across cars, buses, every single thing. It's going to be both.
But surely you can't have VHS and beta. Like it's going to have to be one or the other.
No, I don't think so. Well, essentially,
Which one's
hydrogen
gonna be
is
beta?
electric anyway.
Well,
so
it is, but you
it uses
fuel
a fuel
it with
source.
hydrogen.
But
and
you
then-
still got to use a fuel source to charge your
That's
battery
true.
electric car.
I just don't think you can have an auto industry with both. I think it's either got to be hydrogen or electric.
I kind of am of the belief that the car manufacturers are right.
You reckon it's going to be like diesel and petrol?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Well, I should toss in that Peter also mentioned that he sees the hydrogen developing with a different battery system, so that some of the the key metals that are used in current batteries may be downplayed, which actually leads us to our next story, which is that Panasonic, that happens to be a key supplier to Tesla, plans to develop a cobalt-free car battery. So we spoke last week about how cobalt was an iffy, component of lithium-ion batteries. It's used as a cathode material inside the battery, but it's acquisition is dodgy on ethical grounds, possibly on environmental grounds. The price of it is skyrocketing anyway. So on commercial grounds, it's looking increasingly more difficult to incorporate it. So that's an interesting move.
Yeah. Well, what's the material that comes next?
That's right. I don't know. What are they subbing out of for cobalt?
Yeah.
I don't know.
If it's another precious metal from deep under the crust of the earth, then what's it's going to get to a point where it's got to be something else.
It just reinforces the point that humans are evil and chew up human resources until the planet disappears.
Yeah.
We're a virus.
And we all die out. That's what happens.
Right.
It'll happen eventually. We won't be around for it though, so we'll be happy.
But speaking of all dying out, Donald Trump has claimed via Twitter that his efforts working with Ford has saved the move of two of the brand's plants in Louisville, Kentucky. The first one produces the Lincoln Navigator, and the second one, the Lincoln... Now, the Navigator, I think, is a large SUV.
Massive.
And then the Lincoln MKC, which is a smaller SUV, and the Ford Escape, which is also an SUV. And he is saying they are now not going to Mexico due to his, quote, hard work. Now, Ford has come back and said, look, at best, it involved one model, the MKC. So we're not talking about two plants going to Mexico. That was never on the agenda.
Yeah.
They had loosely discussed taking MKC production to Mexico, but that's what's not happened. So it's for mine, it's a typical kind of inflation or distortion, if you want. But anyway, for the time being, those two plants are staying put.
Donald Trump is I don't want to say master because that implies he's got, he's good at something. But this is one of his techniques where he will just completely take, credit for something which was or wasn't going to happen. He tweeted saying, Bill Ford, my friend Bill Ford contacted me and told me that they were going to keep the Lincoln plant in Kentucky. Well, that's not what happened at all. It was just that one particular model, and they had no plan to move it anyway.
Yeah,
so
he claims to have had a guiding hand in the development of the Winton Motor Company, and Frosty takes massive exception to that.
Of course he would. It's Aussie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when Trump came out with that tweet saying, I've kept Winton in Australia, like that's... Winton had no plans to move to Kentucky.
Well, look, speaking of stretching the tooth, stretching the tooth. You've had some dental work during the week too.
I have. I'll show you later.
Stretching the truth. Now a word from our young adult friends, allegedly, at Oversteer.
When you're done listening to these old farts ramble on,
can I tell a story?
Come and listen to the Oversteer podcast, where we talk about the stuff that kids love.
Story time with Mitchy Boy.
Yeah, because if I don't try, I won't fail.
How you roll into a petrol station and you're like...
Would you rather be designated driver for a group of kids on a sugar high or a group of super drunk adults?
Yes, the Oversteer podcast has everything, and you can find it on the Cars Guide website, iTunes, and where all good podcasts are sold.
Right.
Friends?
Hate them.
Yep, there it is.
I call them friends, but Richard doesn't.
I just call them
enemies.
Associates.
Not even
They're
close.
just... One of them's got purple trousers. Skin tight purple trousers.
He's on brand.
Workplace relations is not your forte.
I don't. Workplace isn't my forte.
So just changing tracks a little bit, Skoda says its global sales have doubled in the last decade. So in 2007, they were at 630,000 units, and in 2017, they bumped up to 1.2 and a bit million.
Whoa. So when was that first date?
07.
2007.
Yeah.
So 2007 was when they were building ugly cars, and 2017 is when they're not building ugly cars.
They've become a star performer in the VW group. They're massively profitable.
Yeah.
I wrote it down here. 9.7% of operating margin, like that. If a car dealer could still get 10% margin, that would be a major win. But they, as a manufacturing brand, it's got two factories in the Czech Republic where the brand is based. But the downside of all this is that those plants are stretched. So they're getting to a tipping point. Like, okay, do we put in another factory or whatever? But at the same time, the workers in those plants are demanding higher wages and better conditions. So they're coming from, it's probably one of Europe's lesser nations in terms of manufacturing and standards of living. And now those workers quite rightly want more money and better conditions. And it's just that syndrome that we've seen before, particularly in Korea.
Yeah.
We're going to work 7 days a week. We'll be paid a pittance, no holidays, whatever. And the cars get out there at a certain price. It's fantastic. But then the workers, I don't want to work 7 days anymore.
Yeah.
I want to be paid more. I want to take a holiday. So they're suffering, growing pains.
Yeah. And this is most car manufacturing places around the world will have experienced something like this before, where the costs start to get too high. Have a look at Australia, for example, and things go offshore. So what might happen here is Skoda might look at building a plant in Romania where it costs less, or Estonia where it costs less.
Exactly.
The Czech Republic is one of the more developed nations in that part of Europe, so it makes sense that it is getting more expensive for everything to happen there.
That could so easily happen.
I want to know where the last country is.
Right, like the one that undercuts everyone, and there's no one else to come in.
And we go from Romania to next one, the next one, the next one. Where's that?
At one point, there's going to be if Africa is currently considered still very much a developing part of the market. Yeah. At one point, it will be developed, but some other part that was previously developed won't be.
Yeah, sure.
So, that's just the way that it all works. But
Now, speaking of a part of the world that was previously developed, Detroit. So Detroit, obviously its heyday, post-war in the US, pre-Second World War and post-war. But then eventually those market forces took globalization, meant that a lot of jobs and plants and things went outside the US. And it's like this fallen wonder. Detroit was such a centre, or is still such a centre, for fabulous architecture. All the buildings, the best architects were brought in. The plants, you've got things like that enormous Packard plant that has been lying fallow for so long, sadly. But one iconic building in Detroit looks like it's just about to have a renaissance. Funny that GM built the Renaissance Centre, I think, in the 80s to try and get Detroit going again. But it's the Michigan Central Station, better known as the Detroit Train Station. And it's in an area of Detroit called Corktown. And Ford has been buying up a whole bunch of buildings down there. They're going to have their electric vehicle skunk works and make another historic building there. And the word is that they've bought this train station, which I reckon is great news, because if you've been to Detroit and had a look at it, it is a magnificent thing. It's not just a low-lying train station. It has a multi-story office building on top of it. And if they can get that going, it was built in 1914, and it was designed by the same architects that did the Grand Central Station in New York. So it has that really amazing look to it. So
if you haven't been to Detroit, it does have that feeling like the New York of the North on a small scale. Like it is one of the most amazing cities to look at and just to walk around. Like we often go at Detroit Motor Show time, which is middle of winter. It's minus 12 degrees at middle of the day, but you still risk it. You go out for a walk because it's such a beautiful place to look at.
The architecture particularly, it is just mesmerising. So I reckon that's just like a little shining ray of light in Detroit's future. It's really great news.
Do you think this is like an indication that Detroit could make a comeback?
I just think it's a really nice corporate citizenship move on Ford's behalf. They've got such a big part in Detroit's history that they feel moved to acquire that building and do something about it. I'm as naive as the next person, but I think they're probably just doing something good for the city.
Old Donnie Trump probably had a hand to play in that,
Of course
right?
he did. He worked hard on it. He brought all that together.
Good bloke.
Thanks, Donald.
Now, look, we're getting close to the finish line, but in our garage this week, Matt, tell us a bit about what you've been driving.
I've been driving a Volkswagen Transporter, which, there's a bunch of different transporters you can buy. So starting at like $35,000 for a base model manual, up to, if you want, you could probably get one up to about 75 or 80 grand. And that's not including the people mover versions and the multivan, the Caravelle, that sort of stuff.
Caravelle, that's right. Yeah. We've had this discussion about the multiple layers of naming here.
It's
Transporter, Caravelle, Combi, microbus, blah.
So the one I've been driving is a mid-roof, long wheelbase, 4Motion, with a bunch of different little packs and things on it.
Wow.
About 60 grand. Yeah. But this is the cool thing about this van is that for a lot of these mid-size vans, there's one or two options you can choose from, maybe one or two drivetrains. You might be able to get a high roof or a low roof or a wheelbase stretch or whatever. But there's so much customization.
Right.
If you want something very specific for your van, the Transporter is probably the only place you can get it.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest appealing things about it.
That's cool.
But it's expensive.
It's expensive. So it'd be, I imagine, given their volume in this country, it'd be a kind of order it up, wait for it to be built kind of thing, to your tailored requirements.
The vast majority of people buy the Runner edition, which is the cheapest version. It's $35,990, I think.
Wow.
And it's a good van. Like at that price point, it's worth looking at, but if you don't have specific needs. So
now, Richard,
fun to drive.
You've been steering
BMW Alpina B7.
Right.
And
it's a low-key vehicle.
It's a low-key vehicle, mass-produced, you know.
Look at us keeping it real.
Yeah, no, totally keeping it real. So Alpina, if you didn't know already, is they're more than just a tuning house. They've got a close relationship with BMW. They take a BMW and they fit it with its own engine. They overhaul it, and by the end, the Alpina B7 is so different from the 7 Series or the 750 Li that it's based on. They actually scratch off the VIN number.
I saw those
and they put it in a new one.
I thought you'd had
no, they're not mine.
A parking
They're
accident.
not mine. They're not mine. Also, one of the only fast BMWs that's not limited. It doesn't have a 250 kilometre hour limiter on it.
Oh.
It's unlimited, top speed.
Speed of light.
I hear, because I don't know, I wouldn't have tested it, 330 kilometres an hour. That's faster than a McLaren 570 GT.
What?
And it's a 5-seat saloon with 3 televisions on board. It is a...
Wow.
Fast.
And is it it's like 5-point-something meters long and 2-point-something tons, right?
It's 2.1 tons. It's 5.2 meters long. It is 0 to 100 in 4.1 seconds. 447 kilowatts, 800 newton meters, 330 kilometers an hour. And you'll have to watch the video, but I actually ended up in jail in this one, Silverwater Jail.
That's very Richard.
Yeah.
Good.
It's
all
that
right.
fast.
Let's leave it there, or we're headed for litigation. I can tell.
Yep.
I had a Lexus RX300. It's a 2-litre turbo. Really, I was really impressed by the engine. I thought it was a very sprightly engine.
So this is the formerly 200T, now 300.
Yeah,
right.
But it's a 6-speed auto.
Yeah,
and it's about $87,000 before on-road costs. So it's got the leather. It's got all of that Lexus stuff. I've got to say, I still get hung up on the remote touch media interface.
Oh my God.
I know this is a drum that's been banged by various people, but honestly, I just wish Lexus would get over it and say, we made a mistake.
How much louder do we have to bang it before they change things?
It's pretty bad.
Honestly,
and
get
right
it
down
out,
to
Lexus.
and for people that aren't across this, the little toggle switch that or controller that you use in the console to move things in the media screen is so overly sensitive that you overshoot regularly. It's actually quite dangerous because you find yourself, if you're in motion, trying to do a quick switch to something here and it's going all over the place. So it's really confusing and I can't stand it. And the graphics on the screen are tremendously old school to boot. So there's a lot going wrong with that. But the car itself, I found really fun to drive. The engine was great. Gearbox was great, but there you go.
Can I just say something? The price of the Alpina, $389,000.
$389,000. Bargain. Okay.
Oh my God.
On that pricey note, I think we've reached the finish line. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
And thanks as always to our producer Barbara for his nimble fingerwork on the mixing desk. We'd dope slap him, but Peter would come onto us for animal abuse.
I was even Peter Anderson.
No. Well, the RSPCA anyway. Thank you for listening. And like our new best friend, Peter Gaskin, please let us know what you think of the program. Search for Cars Guide on Facebook and Instagram and use the hashtag CGPodcast or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. You can listen to and watch us on YouTube. And if you're an iTunes devotee, please rate and review us. We're still ranking 5 out of 5 stars.
Wow.
I mean, come on. We're not that good. Give us your thoughts.
We're perfect, but we're not that perfect.
Let us know. I hope you can join us next week. Until then, sometimes when I'm cruising into the city in a $400,000 vehicle, I lean back and think, if this bus driver doesn't get a move on, I'll be late for work.